Thank you all for being here. Thanks for having me. My name is Nick Gallo. I'm a senior solution architect with Red Hat, formerly a DISA engineer for a cloud product. I live based in Frederick, Maryland, and right now I'm supporting Air Force programs. So my presentation, compared with some of the other ones that at least I've heard today, is a little bit more high level, but hopefully this can lend context and we can kind of expound on these ideas as we go on. So as I said, my name is Nick Gallo, Senior Solutions Architect, and I'm here to talk about Red Hat's approach to DevSecOps and how we're creating and adopting standards to make a positive impact on the industry. So DevSecOps, as we all know, DevSecOps is a philosophy and a set of practices that integrate security measures seamlessly into software development lifecycle. By making security a shared responsibility and fostering collaboration among all stakeholders in the development process, we can create more robust and secure applications. We understand that DevSecOps by its nature is not a single solution, and we must select the best tools where standardization can bring improved interoperability and ultimately a better user experience. At Red Hat, we're a global leader in open source software solutions, and we've been at the forefront of promoting and standardizing DevSecOps principles. Our approach is centered around three key elements: open collaboration, automation, and best practices. So talking about open collaboration. Open collaboration is the cornerstone of innovation. And as we leverage our open source roots to encourage the sharing of ideas, code, and expertise within DevSecOps community, this collaborative environment promotes transparency, trust, and faster adoption of new technologies. We actively participate in and support numerous open source projects, such as the OpenShift platform, which serves as a robust foundation for DevSecOps implementations. By embracing open source collaboration, Red Hat is driving the development and standardized tools and processes that benefit the entire industry. We believe that this collaboration is vital to modern software development. OpenShift in itself is an exercise in collaboration and interoperability. Those familiar with OpenShift know it is a marriage of many independent open source projects, which are carefully cultivated into a seamless enterprise hybrid solution. Much of this is possible through the adoption of standards and certifications, like Rob said before, including the CNCF, which certified Kubernetes, as well as we use RESTful APIs. So automation. Automation is also critical to ensuring consistent and efficient processes in a fast-paced world of software development. Red Hat's approach to DevSecOps emphasizes the importance of automating security tasks with CI/CD pipelines. This enables developers to identify and address security vulnerabilities early in the development process, significantly reducing the potential risks and costs associated with security breaches. We provide solutions such as Ansible to help with the associated security. Ansible to help organizations automate the implementations of security policies and configurations across their infrastructure. By providing reliable means of automation, Red Hat is enabling businesses to accelerate their DevSecOps adoption and improve the overall security posture of their applications. So Rob talked about shifting security left. That's effectively what we're doing here. Open best practices. So see a lot of logos up here. To effectively implement DevSecOps, organizations should follow best practices and guidelines. To that end, Red Hat actively contributes to the creation and dissemination of DevSecOps best practices and standards through various channels. We recognize that simply having the right tools is not enough. Technical security guidance in the way of vendor-independent standards are often necessary. Some of these examples of these standards include DISA STIGs, Common Criteria, FedRAMP, FISMA, and HIPAA. These standards afford us a lot of assurances. We're also committed to fostering a culture of continuous learning and improvement. Red Hat provides a means to easily apply security content through tools like the Compliance Operator, in OpenShift and or RHEL security profiles, as well as the means to ensure security posture persists. Additionally, we have some extensive certification and training programs. Red Hat is helping organizations build skilled DevSecOps teams that are well-versed in the latest methodologies, tools, and techniques. And we also are helping to implement those best practices in an effort of getting our programs and customers ATOs. Interoperability through standardization. So moreover, standardization has many benefits to offer DevSecOps industry. One of the most significant benefits is to improve security. Standards can ensure that security practices are consistently applied throughout the development process. And this can help us to identify and address vulnerabilities early on, reducing the risk of security breaches and data loss. Standards can help establish a common language and practices across different teams involved in the DevSecOps process, leading to better communication, collaboration, and understanding among team members. Standardization also increases efficiency by providing clear guidelines, best practices, reducing errors, and minimizing work to speed up the development timeline. Another significant benefit of standardization is interoperability. Standardization can help us, different tools and technologies work seamlessly together, allowing teams to focus on developing their applications rather than worrying about compatibility issues. This leads to more streamlined workflows, faster development cycles, and ultimately better products. There are principles that Red Hat holds dear, and we take care to help our customers implement. Furthermore, standardization can help a level of assurance and compliance. Standards, as mentioned before, HIPAA, FISMA, and FedRAMP help ensure systems and applications meet specific regulatory requirements. Adhering to these standards not only helps organizations stay compliant, but also builds trust with their customers and stakeholders who know their data is being handled securely and responsibly. That said, we don't want to stop there. Further creation of standards are more focused on interoperability are still necessary. The industry as a whole is better if we can be confident that the entire ecosystem of tools will be interoperable. It is my opinion that independent organizations can help steer this and can help steer industry to this future. In conclusion, Red Hat's approach to creating standards around DevSecOps and shaping the industry by promoting open collaboration, automation, and best practices. By championing these principles, Red Hat is not only helping organizations build more secure and resilient applications, but also foster a global community that is more secure and resilient and equipped to face the challenges of today's technology landscape. Standardization is paramount to the health of the industry and providing improved security, collaboration, efficiency, and compliance. We are committed to the continuous learning and improvement, and we look forward to collaborating with the DevSecOps community to push the industry forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Yeah, any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Nick Redhead? Bill's got one to this time. I can't see it. I'll let everybody else go first.
So, given all of that, are there areas that you would see being useful to look at first if we start looking at some standards?
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, I deal a lot with software factories. So we're looking at, at least in my case, Air Force customers that are trying to build a lot of pieces and parts. And what ends up happening is everyone ends up eventually being a snowflake. Everybody has their own requirements and want to bring their own perspective in, which is fine. We're extensible in this way, being open source and our core being a Kubernetes platform. But every time that you want to introduce something that's not already been vetted, there's a lot of rework in order to build. So we end up with a ton of engineering time. So we were talking a little bit about Platform One and Big Bang and the tool sets that exist there, if you're all familiar with that. But we're finding that there's a more amount of engineering work that goes into bringing something foreign or something additional or trying to make all these parts and pieces together. So if there were standards that existed, in theory, everyone's speaking a common language, then you can think of how APIs revolutionized the industry. So something similar to that, but for more DevSecOps folks and tools.
Cool.
So Red Hat has a narrowing effect on repository, right? It provides a control mechanism for which source code is pulled in from the open source community, right? I mean, if you ever watched a firewall log as you do an update on a Ubuntu system, it goes, it hits IP addresses all over the world. And Red Hat with satellite servers and things like that actually, and mirrors can actually provide some provenance to the code. I mean, it's a little tough to have provenance for, a billion open source writers out there, but is there, what are you doing to validate what comes in?
Yeah, and great question. So this is open source 101. This is what they teach you whenever you walk in the door of RedHat. So hopefully I get it right. But effectively, there's, as you identified, a lot of open source communities that allow anyone to participate in those communities and make code. But what we do is those open source communities remain open and freely to everybody. And we often have a lot of developers that are contributing to those projects. But whenever it comes under our roof and under our support, then we're vetting all that code. So then we have things like state support. We have people and engineers on the Red Hat side of the fence, so not the open source or the open community side of the fence. They're making sure that we're vetting that we're providing updates, we're providing security patches, and the support for those projects.
So did you do anything for the code? Analyze it with static analyzers or do anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, all of the code is static based.
Is statically analyzed?
Can you help me out with that term? I'm less familiar with static.
Code analyzers that determine vulnerabilities in the source code.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
And you do that to 100% of all the code.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to? I can get you connected with engineers that can describe that process in more detail for you. But yeah, I mean, so first of all, the code's all open, so anybody can do it and analyze it, right? But yes, as we basically compile it for distribution for our customers, whenever you go through your subscribed account, and we have basically methodologies for trusted supply chain, which is effectively what you're talking about. Then we have entire processes for that.
We have 3 or 4 static analyzers we use internally. And I had proposed this about 5 years ago to one of the engineering managers. He said, give me 30 or 40 more engineers to do that to the Linux source. And so somebody needs to, this is good. If you have evidence, we'd be interested in it.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, let's exchange information. I'd love to dig into that with you more.
Thank you. Court might offer you that synopsis that there's very, in my opinion, is a world-class static analysis product, right?
And we have that.
They offer to the open source community the usage of that incredibly expensive product for free. I use it on my open source project, right? But they scan, thousands of other open source projects. So that's if you're just looking for that kind of thing, that's freely available online.
Well, the scans are good. It's the fixes that are important.
Of course.
Making the Christmas tree is wonderful, but
Right now it's just
getting rid of the reds that's the challenge, right?
Yeah, so
I'm gonna go with
is the root of your question that you're trying to ask, not only do they guarantee the provenance, but they actually perform the work to update that code should those issues be found. Is that the case?
and that would be unimaginably hard, even for Red Hat and their size. Yeah, that would be wonderful if they did.
I'd say let's let him respond.
Yeah.
Well, frankly, so I'm more of the Kubernetes guy. So if we're talking about, I assume all of the open source projects, but a lot of our insights products, which are at least the introspection version of what you're talking about. So now we're identifying vulnerabilities that have been introduced into the field. Now we're basically finding fixes and that repairability. This construct exists, but in terms of, I'm not a security guy by trade, so I'd do best to service you in order to get you connected with an engineer.
Whichever one.
Sure.
Thank you.
Corey.
So you made an interesting comment about interoperability through standardization. I value that, kind of grabs my attention.
Sure.
And we saw what you shared a little bit, but take that further. What are some of the resources that Red Hat has to help us, all of us, create that interoperability through standardization? You mentioned best practices, but when I saw more of a list of different policy statements, one of the best practices. But what are some of those best practices are there? Are there some published Red Hat resources available?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, as you can imagine, a lot of times best practices are at least somewhat dependent on your use case, right? So we have to identify what are your requirements and make sure we're adhering your best practices to those. But yeah, ultimately we find things like it really just depends on what domain we're talking about, but using certain storage providers rather than others, or putting things in a security profile or entering security content to keep things in a certain security posture.
So like you're a Kubernetes guy. Do you have best practices that you apply these for what you do?
For our customers, yeah, of course.
But you say that varies for every one of your customers. Do you have here's a best practice guide that we use that is kind of the de facto best practice approach across all our customers?
Yeah, so I mean, short answer is yes. Long answer is, so I'm dealing with a lot of disconnected customers, and yes, so we'll tell them what their best practices are. They're going to end up doing their implementation differently. But to answer your question as core, yes, best practice guides absolutely exist, and we're doing a lot of our implementation teams are going to guide you straight through that.